individuals that we interviewed for the Civil Rights History Project. She is Japanese American. He's white American. She grew up in Japan, went to high school and 1 year of college there. And the college that she was associated with was a Christian mission school. And so they invited her to come to school and finish her education in America, in South Dakota. And so she came to the university there and finished school and then went back to Japan. And they said, we still have some funds if you'd like to finish graduate school. And so she came to Chicago Theological Seminary, which is where she met David, who was originally from Illinois, Mount Carroll, I think, Illinois, small town, and went to Knox College and then went to graduate school. He lost a brother who was gay and was part of the military, and they found out that he was gay and he committed suicide. So it was devastating for David. A friend suggested that he might go to Chicago Theological Seminary, and he did. He said it was the right decision for him, and of course he met Satoko Ackerman at the school, and they were also classmates of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It was very powerful on a number of levels because I think it represented what the civil rights movement was about for most of the people that we've interviewed. That is, that they were changed, they were transformed by their experience. And for them, they were only involved for a few days in terms of actively participating in the civil rights movement. From going from Chicago with Jackson to Selma, Alabama. And they were responding to Dr. King's call for people who were of religious faith, seminarians, clergymen, to come to Alabama after Bloody Sunday, which was March 7th, 1965, where you have a number of people, including John Lewis, the current congressman from Georgia now, who were trying to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And they were trying to do two things: bring attention to the fact that Jimmy Lee Jackson had been killed by law enforcement. He was participating in a march in Marion, Alabama, and trying to protect his parents. But also, again, trying to bring attention to voter registration and the fact that African Americans were not allowed to participate and to vote, to not even register to vote, let alone to be able to vote. So those were the two major issues that they were dealing with, and going from Selma to Montgomery. But they never crossed the bridge that first day. So then King issues this appeal to the religious community. And for the Ackermans, it was a very powerful appeal. They saw him asking people to come. But they also experienced their classmate, Reverend Jackson, saying to them, they said he took over a convocation and was appealing to his classmates that here is an opportunity to put your faith in action, to go to Selma, Alabama. And there were 12 of them. Jackson was the only African American in the group. Satoko was the only Japanese person, and her best friend, who was white, and the others were white males. And they drove to Alabama. She tells a very powerful story that, for me, illustrated how we can read situations differently based on our experiences. She said she never felt any discrimination. She didn't feel different. She didn't think about herself as being Japanese American. But they go to a gas station, and Jackson goes inside, I think, to pay for the gas or something like that. And she and her friend are walking around. And a white guy comes out of the store and goes into a telephone booth and is making a call. Jackson comes out of the store and he's yelling and screaming at them to get in the car. And they get in the car. She said she was upset with him because she didn't understand why he was screaming at her. He read it as a situation of potential danger, that person would be calling other people because here you have this interracial group. 2 females and white males and a black male. And in fact, she said they were followed by a group of white males, and they were driving, of course, to try to get away from them. But again, she didn't look at that situation as something that was dangerous, whereas he immediately recognized it as a dangerous situation. Both she and David talk about arriving in Selma, Alabama, and realizing that there is tremendous disparity between African American and whites in terms of the communities where they lived, that for blacks there were no paved sidewalks, there were no street lights, the housing was in terrible condition. They were overwhelmed by the warmth and generosity of the people in that community, because they go and stay with different individuals. And Satoko talked about waking up that morning and realizing that the people in the household had stayed awake all night to watch and guard to make sure that they were safe. Here they were coming from Chicago to help protect them in this community, but they were the ones who were being protected. There were other stories where they talked about standing in line, and she said at the point in which they locked arms together, that it was almost as if a current or an energy went through them, where she realized that not only was she protecting them, they were protecting her, but that it empowered her, gave us this tremendous sense of energy that I can do anything. Well, I think their experience would be similar to the other kinds of experience that people, again, lived with every day, where they experienced, or again, not actual violence, but the threat of violence. But that, again, if you have this kind of community of support, a community of oneness, as they sort of described it, that you can deal with anything, that you can make those kinds of changes in your community. And it was a really transforming experience for them. They were there for, very few days. They participated in the Turnaround Tuesday and stayed a few days after that, and then returned to Chicago. But it changed their lives in the sense that everything that they did involved this sense of fairness and equality and justice and tolerance. She was a kindergarten teacher, and she said she incorporated that into her thesis, her research, the way in which she taught in her classes, the way she lived her life. She told a story about living in the community, and there was one black child in the neighborhood who would come over to play with her daughter, and that there was another neighbor who had daughters and didn't want his daughters to play with her children. But she said, if they come over, they will play with whoever is at my house. Again, it just became a part of their entire lives. I think it was the same as having African Americans who were involved in this movement. But it sent a message to the larger community that this is our story. It's not just about changing racial segregation in the South. It's about making America a better place, a place that's open up. And the kind of legislation that occurs, that comes out of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that allows other people, women, to have opportunities, people who are physically challenged, those people who are gay. It's built on that same kind of foundation that's associated with the civil rights movement and those acts. I think they're involved in all of those kinds of ways because, again, this was a situation where they saw what was happening with Bloody Sunday and just felt compelled to go. In fact, Satoko talked about Dave, again, who was her boyfriend at the time, who did not want her to go, that he was concerned about what could happen to her. But she said she had to go. She knew that she had to go. So people were involved in a variety of ways. Many of them, they saw it on television or they read a newspaper and felt like, I need to be in this place and doing something, making a change. I think it's both. It's a smaller part because it's a personal story where individuals said, I'm going to do something. I'm not going to sit here and look at the news. And that was the power of the media during that period of time, that people saw individuals who were involved, people who were being shot down with water hoses, or being attacked, spat on. And so it moved America to say, here is something that I can do, and I can become active and make a difference. And I think that's an important part of when I look at the stories that we've collected through the Civil Rights History Project, is that we're creating this national record, and we're creating a record about ordinary, everyday people who become involved. And I think that's the ultimate role of being a good citizen, is that you can make a difference. We're recording these stories of people, and that was the purpose of Congress when they passed this legislation in 2009 to say, please capture the story of the unknown and unsung heroes of the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s. Most people probably, other than their friends and neighbors, have never heard of David and Satoko Ackerman, but now they do, and now they will.